All right, we are on YouTube. We are also on Twitch. I'm going to get the Twitch stream up here in a second so that we are ready to go here on Monday. And we'll get into the podcast here in a second. I got pretty much everything up and running, so we can jump right into the podcast, unlike we have in some of the other times we've done this live stuff. And we'll do that. So, see, we got somebody watching. That's good. Welcome to a rainy Monday here in northern New Jersey. So we'll do this episode instead of whatever the heck I was going to plan on doing today. So we'll enjoy that. And I think the Twitch side of things are on. I don't know. It's showing that I'm not on there. I don't know. I don't get it. I see that it's on. I don't think the stream has changed any bit since then. So technology, you gotta love it. As always, you can drop any comments, anything you guys want to talk about in the breaks. There will be breaks during this episode. I will promise you that. We will have an opportunity to chat in between, so you can drop any comments that you have in either chat, either on YouTube or on Twitch. Which, let me go back in and see. Okay, now it's showing that I'm on. Okay. All right, cool. So now the dashboard's working properly on the Twitch side of things. So that's always a good thing. And we're on a little bit before 11, which is fine. I'm okay with that. I didn't really have an exact time that we were going to start besides 11. So we'll get right into the episode in a minute here. And hopefully everybody had a great weekend. You guys enjoyed the races out at the Roval. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Talladega because I know I didn't get a chance to do an episode last week, so we'll talk about that. And we will get all the news and notes for the week. We'll get all those in, and we'll go from there. So glad to be on a Monday. We'll get you guys caught up basically to where you should be on the news side of things and on the racing side of things. So we'll get you guys all caught up to this point. So it's 11 o'clock. Let me go start the show open here, and we will begin. All right, everybody. This is Bobby Bailey here at the Crew Chiefs Corner podcast, bringing you another episode here. And do apologize. I was trying to do an episode last week, but as I think it's Murphy's Law that says it. Anything that can and will go wrong, or something like that, to that effect. But we had an episode all lined up. I was going to do one on Friday morning, and then unfortunately, duty calls, and I had to go into my real world job. So I had to go do that. And the next opportunity to do the show was not going to be until today anyhow. So we kind of missed, a lot of the big news last week. So we'll get you guys all caught up on all the stuff that happened with silly season, who's going where, what's happening. I tried to delay the episode until Friday because when I found out the Clint Boyer story that Clint was retiring, I didn't want to record the episode that night. I could have recorded it Thursday evening, but I decided to hold off because that's when Boyer announced that he was retiring. And I was kind of hoping we were going to find out if it was Briscoe, if it was Larson, over the weekend. And then obviously we really don't have an exact answer. I think it's going to be Briscoe, but we'll talk about that. And then we'll get you guys caught up on the races at Talladega. I know a lot of people wanted to hear my opinions on what happened with Denny Hamlin. We'll talk about NASCAR's consistently inconsistent rulings when it comes to the double yellow line, and also why I don't personally agree with those that want to get rid of the double yellow line rule. I will take a trip down memory lane. We will kind of go back and look at why I think the rule still needs to be in effect. I'll be the contrarian to all these media heads that want to say it's time to get rid of the double yellow line. I think the racing would actually suffer if we went back to the old way, and I'll explain to you guys why later. And we'll also talk about the Roval. Did NASCAR make the right decision in running the Xfinity race in a downpour? I know a lot of people had some differing opinions on that. I will give you my take on that as well. And we'll look ahead. We'll look ahead at Kansas. We have a exciting race weekend at Kansas. All the entry list magically came out this morning at 9:30. So I have all that stuff on the site. You can go back and look at the past race results from this past weekend. I have Xfinity and Cup up there as well. So check us out on our social media, on the Facebook and all that stuff. You guys know how to find us pretty much. if you found the YouTube and the Twitch pages. And for those of you that are listening to this podcast, you can watch it live. Now, I do forewarn everybody, I don't necessarily commit to a time publicly that I'm doing this episode. But what I try to do is I try to give you guys at least a 15 to 30-minute heads up when it is coming. And I post the links directly to the live streams. So you can watch us on Twitch. It's twitch.tv. The slash there, the backslash, and then it's Giants spelled just like the football team. 02122. You can catch me on there. Unfortunately, that doesn't record me for whatever reason. I've tried hitting the record button on OBS. It just doesn't record. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and play with it. And then you can watch us on YouTube as well. Just search Crew Chiefs Corner. You can find the page, subscribe to it. And then anytime we do go live, you will get notified. And I do try to schedule the YouTube recording so that at least you guys will get notified that I'm planning on going live in 15 minutes or whatever. And we'll go from there. So on the other side of this break, we will come back and we will discuss the news, because I know the silly season news is what everybody's going to look for in this episode. The race stuff we'll talk about later on. So if you're looking for the Talladega Charlotte segment, you're going to probably have to give me about 15, 20 minutes in the podcast. We will talk about the 2021 news, and then we'll do the race recaps right after that. So stay with us here on the Crew Chiefs Corner podcast. I'm Bobby Bailey. All right, so that was the opening. That was the opening segment. Now I got to give it like a minute or so to try to process. So this is the point where you guys and gals that are watching on YouTube and Twitch can kind of chime in and, maybe give me a little something you guys want to talk about, something you guys found interesting about this race weekend. What about the news, all that fun stuff. So this is where the interaction kind of comes in. And I'm waiting for someone to say something. I haven't had someone say anything in any of these chats in the last 5 or 6 I've done. So I don't know if it's because they're robots that are watching or what's going on here, but it says I have a viewer in each. So if you guys don't want to be shy and ask a question or state an opinion, that's what these breaks are for. It's also to allow the technology of Anchor to get caught up and actually process what I said and put it into its proper format. Episode 30 show intro. I gotta try it. Make a podcast, they say. It would be fun, they say. Come on. There we go. That's there. All right, cool. There. It started. Nope. That one. There we go. All right. So nobody's got any comments? All right. We're going to jump right into the next segment here. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Bobby Bailey. This is the Crew Chiefs Corner podcast that you can, like I said, listen to live on Twitch and on YouTube. So find us on those social media platforms as well as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. We're basically everywhere you can find a social media presence. We are on. So check that out. And obviously, if you're listening to the podcast, make sure you tell your friends. We're available pretty much on most major platforms, I would say, at this point in time. So you can listen along to this episode along with all the previous ones that we had. So that's my little advert. I'll get out of the way and we'll jump right into the news. So a crazy week for 2021 news. I think the first question we got answered was the Matt DiBenedetto question. And listen, I said it for weeks. I personally didn't think DiBenedetto was coming back to the 21. I really didn't think that was going to be a possibility. I just, there was a lot of things that were pointing to Austin Cindric. And, Austin's got, I think, 5 wins this year in Xfinity. He's going to be a title contender, whether or not he wins this championship or not. I don't really think is going to impact his ability to get promoted. At least that's what I thought initially. And then we found out that there was actually two drops of news in the same morning. So the first drop of news was that Matt DiBenedetto is being brought back to the 21 for 2021, which is all indications a great move for all parties. I think this is the result that most Matt D fans wanted, was Matt to be back in that car. I think Matt himself wanted to really be back in that car. He didn't want to be in his third seat within 3 years. I mean, that's kind of tough on a driver that's trying to prove himself and still trying to prove himself. I think a lot of people forget that, 4 or 5 years ago, Matt DiBenedetto was driving the 23 car. Not the 23. He was driving the 83 over at BK Racing and struggling to finish, 20th most weeks. He had that run at Bristol, that 6th place finish at Bristol. I think it's now 3-4 years ago. And that really started turning some heads. And he's just been a guy that a lot of people have always taken an interest in, but I just don't know if he's ever been that guy that someone's like, oh, I'm going to go take a chance. And then, you got the 95 seat, let's go in order. He went from the 83 to the 32. He turned some heads in the 32. He had some good runs with those guys over at Go Fast. And then he parlayed that into the 95 ride, at Levine Family Racing. And he had some good runs going with those guys too. He had a couple really good runs on the plate tracks. He had a great run at the Daytona 500 in, I think that was 2018, and really proved himself, that was 2019. He really proved himself in 2019 at that Daytona 500. And he had some other decent runs for those guys and just really, made the case that, he was an actual talent that needed to get a seat, not just a guy that's a seat filler that jumped up the cup because, he couldn't get an Xfinity ride or something like that, So then he gets to 21 this year. And, by all indications, has not had the season that I think he would have thought he was going to have. And what I mean by that is, the Wood brothers made the playoffs. It's the first time they've ever made the playoffs as a team, because they've haven't run full time enough over the last several years as it is. And Paul Menard wasn't making the playoffs with them, his one season with the organization. And I think you look at that before then, Ryan Blaney was still kind of on the rawer side of things in his Cup career. And I think most Ryan Blaney fans would agree with that Ryan kind of came up and didn't really get that full Xfinity season under his belt. Like I think most people would have liked him to have, but I think because he was such a talent and such a commodity at Penske, and they were looking at the future over there and what are we going to do down the road here at Team Penske. I think that Blaney just kind of got thrusted into the future, and they really didn't have the opportunity to put him in a full-time Xfinity ride. I mean, when you kind of go back and revisit some of the history there, Blaney, was driving with Discount Tire, and Discount Tire really wanted the Cup guys in those cars. They really liked Brad Keselowski. They really liked Joey Logano. So those guys got a lot of opportunities to drive that car, and Blaney was kind of like the fill-in. And, then they would bring in, AJ Allmendinger, or they brought in Jacques Villeneuve or some of these other road racing guys to fill in the road course races. So Blaney didn't get a ton of opportunities to go run the Xfinity car. He didn't get the opportunity to run full-time like Austin Cindric got this year. And that took a lot of convincing of what I understand. It took a lot of convincing on the sponsors to let Cindric run full-time in that car, a couple years ago, and I think that Austin has had 2 really successful seasons. He won his first race last year out at Mid-Ohio on a road course, which I think a lot of people kind of looked at as, that's where you figured he was going to win. Austin's background is sports car racing. He's done a lot of road racing in his background. And, now we've seen him win on ovals. So now he's kind of taking his career and making that next step. He's making that transition even better into NASCAR. So I think, Austin Cindric, hearing the news that he's going to be back in Xfinity for next year, this is basically his opportunity to win this championship. By all indications, Chase Briscoe should be in Cup next year. So that takes away a car that he has to compete with every single week. Now, what Stewart-Haas does with the Xfinity program is basically up in the air. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. There's been a lot of rumors about it. There's been some rumors that it's getting shut down. There's been some rumors in the past that Ryan Preece is going to go there. There were some rumors that maybe there's another driver that's hanging around that they're going to put in that car. We really don't know. And that's been kind of the wild card in the silly season news. And then Cindric, after he finishes Xfinity next year, is going to go to the 21 of the Wood Brothers and driving Cup in 2022. So he'll get some limited Cup starts this season, driving for Team Penske and a fourth car. And then he will move over to the Wood Brothers and drive their car full-time in 2022. Now, what does that mean for Matt DiBenedetto? I have no idea. For 2022, I mean, there's a lot of things. I know somebody already asked Bob Proctor, and he was just joking. He's like, he could go to the 1 or the 2 or the 30, the 6, the 20, he was coming up with all these different car numbers that don't have that don't have drivers for 2022 yet. And he was just making jokes about that. So, you don't know. I don't think it's a slam dunk that he would be thrown into a Team Penske car. I know there was some chatter that maybe they don't bring Brad Keselowski back. Maybe that's where Matty D ends up. Maybe they make a fourth car for Matty D over at Penske. I'm not really sure how that's all going to work out. I do think putting Cindric in the 21, as I've said before, I thought was the way they were going to go anyhow. I thought that would kind of skirt the whole nepotism thing with his father being in charge over at Penske, being a president of that company, at least of the race team, and that would kind of circumvent some of those things, or at least the appearance of he's just got a seat because of his dad. But I think you've seen it this year that Austin's got the talent. Now, if you bring back in Cole Custer, you bring back in Christopher Bell, and kind of complete the big three that we had last year, does Austin Cindric win all those races? I don't really think so, but we'll see what happens once he loses Briscoe this year at the end of the season and Briscoe gets his Cup seat. I really do believe that it's going to be Austin Cindric's championship to lose next year. And that will be the true testament of whether this kid is actually how he's going to perform in Cup, in my opinion, because when you're one of the top drivers in a series, like the Xfinity series, there is a lot of Cup teams that are in this. I mean, yes, there's not as many as there used to be, but this is going to be the upper echelon of drivers right now. Is going to be Cindric. It's going to be Justin Allgaier, Noah Gragson, and you're going to see Harrison Burton's going to take that next step up. There's been some rumors about, Brandon Jones might be going Cup racing next year for the Gaunt brothers, and that could be a possible kind of JGR Alliance team too next year. So with everything we're seeing, it looks like the Xfinity series is going to go through another kind of like transition into the next group of drivers. And I do believe that you're going to see, Cindric's going to be one of the elder statesmen in this series if it is true that you lose Brandon Jones, you lose Chase Briscoe. Cindric is going to be probably looking at his Cup seat and daydreaming about it a little bit. And that's going to be the thing, is does Austin Cindric has his eyes on the prize that's going to be in front of him, and how much does already knowing where you're going in 2022 affect his ability to win this championship next year? So things to look at, but I think on both sides of the equation, when you get back to DiBenedetto and Cindric, that these are good moves that Penske made. I do believe that this was a compromise. By all indications, they were going to actually let Matt go, but they decided at the last minute to pick up that contract extension, give him that second year in the 21, and really give him an opportunity to prove himself to other team owners and possibly Roger himself that he deserves a Cup seat in a top performing race car. So we'll see what happens. But wish Matt D all the best of luck, and we'll see what happens with Austin Cindric in 2022. Now, the other piece of news that kind of correlates with all this is the Clint Bowyer retirement. We will get to Daniel Suarez in a moment. Bowyer retiring, I mean, we've been calling this for months. I don't think this is a shock to anybody. I don't think this is something that you would sit here today and say, wow, Bobby, this is breaking, this is a big story, nobody knew about it. I know Clint just made his mind up, but I think his mind was made up for him a long time ago. I definitely don't see there being a reason why Stuart Haas would bring him back, in the sense that when you have a talent like a Chase Briscoe um, at your disposal, and you have a Cup team in Boyer that hasn't really won a lot of races, and you look at how successful Kevin Harvick has been, you do look over your shoulders a little bit, and I think the fair assessment is that Boyer, this year has kind of had a rotten luck year. He hasn't had his best season. I think even by his standards, he hasn't had his best season. He made the playoffs. We saw a great drive by him, last night in the race at the Roval, despite all the accidents that he was in and all that stuff. A valiant effort for Clint, and you can see him after the race just physically drained after driving that car with no power steering. But at the end of the day, Clint has decided to call it a career at the end of the season. Just as we all speculated, he's going to go into the Fox Sports booth. He's going to be joining Jeff Gordon and Mike Joy in the booth. So a good thing for Clint. I think this is a big win for everybody. I think this is exactly what Chase Briscoe needed. He needed there to be a door that was going to be open for him to drive a Cup car. It sounded more and more like the 32 kind of has gone to Kaz Gralla for 2021, and it seemed like there's going to be some kind of that would have been the only opportunity for Briscoe to get a Cup seat, with Stewart Haas's if Boyer retired, and it seemed like that did happen. So I do believe that, as much as maybe some people are going to tell you that Clint kind of made this decision on his own, I do think that this also came as part of the negotiation tactics that were going on at Stewart Haas Racing. I do believe that, they probably, without a lot of information leaking out from there, but I do believe that there was some kind of a sponsorship thing or something that they tried to say that, Clint, you got to come up with more money. And I think Clint is at the point in his career where maybe chasing the money isn't in the cards anymore for him. Maybe he's just like, I'm sick of this. They're going to put, Briscoe in this car. Let them put the kid in the car. I'm done dealing with all this stuff. So I think Clint's just, moving on from this chapter of his life, and he's going to go on to the Fox Sports booth and be very, very entertaining to watch. Him and Jeff kind of talking each week about the races, and I think we'll have a really good 3-person booth once again for Fox in 2021, and I can't wait, because I want to see now what happens when Harvick retires in a couple of years. What are they going to do? Does Jeff actually, think about this. Could Jeff actually step away in a couple of years from doing broadcasting and concentrate on Hendrick on his own, and then they bring in Harvick to replace Jeff? So we'll see, but I think there's a lot of things to be looked at for that down the road. But sad day for Clint. Obviously, I know any athlete that decides to retire, it's a tough deal for them. It's what they put their heart and soul into. You look at even football players, basketball players. Even if you're not the greatest at what you do, they all work really hard at it. They all try to be the best that they can be. And when you realize that, you just don't have that same drive anymore, it's time to step away. And I think that's what Boyer has realized as well. So the other news that came out was obviously the Trackhouse team. So Trackhouse is a new team that's getting started up by Justin Marks. The name might sound familiar to a lot of you out there. Justin drove in the Truck Series. He drove in the Xfinity Series. He won at Mid-Ohio in the rain. Justin also has driven some Cup races. And Justin's done quite well for himself. He's also a sports car, race car driver. He's done a lot of stuff like in IMSA and whatnot. So Justin has quite a diverse racing background. He also owns or is a partner of the Go Motor Motorplex over there in Charlotte. It's a go-kart track that it's a professional grade go-kart track. This isn't like your boardwalk go-kart racetrack. This is an actual professional one that you would run if you were doing the World Karting Association or something like that. That's the level of that complex. And it's quite a facility, and Justin's involved in that. So Justin's going to start a Cup team. It's a 1-car team. They're going to be basically embedded at RCR, but they're going to be managed by their own folks. Ty Norris, formerly of Dale Earnhardt Incorporated and formerly of Michael Waltrip Racing, is going to be the vice president of the team. And they have hired Daniel Suarez as their driver of the number 99 Chevrolet starting at Daytona in February 2021. What I make of the move, honestly, I mean, I almost said Daniel Heinrich. For Suarez, I mean, this is really a grasp to stay in Cup. Obviously, he hurt his stock pretty big, in my opinion, when he took this deal at Gaunt Brothers this year. I think he threw a lot of opportunities away to run a top tier Xfinity ride. The numbers I know didn't match up in a bid to drive a third car at Childress, but essentially this is going to be a third car, but somebody else is paying for it out of Childress's stable. So I guess this is the opportunity that he originally probably could have had with RCR, except it's not driving for the team directly. It's driving for Justin Marks, who's going to be buying stuff from Childress and being embedded there. I think this is a great move for Childress. I think this kind of picks up the slack of them building equipment for Germain, which is closing at season's end, and the charter's going over to the new Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin team. So I think that helps out Childress. But in the grand scheme of things, I really think this is a grasp at the straws for Suarez to try to stay relevant and try to keep himself out there. I don't know if this is going to parlay into a bigger opportunity for him with another organization for 2022. But at least for 2021, he's going to be driving this 99 car, and we'll see what kind of speed they have. I mean, we're going to hold our thoughts on that. I mean, I think that the RCR team has shown a lot of promise the last few races, definitely in the playoffs with Austin. You've seen him run his best races at a lot of these places, the last few events. So I think that that's something that if you're Daniel Suarez, you're looking forward to, and you're hoping that can translate into your brand new team. But it's going to depend on the people they hire, to work on the cars, at the track, their road crew. It's also going to depend on the pit crew guys they get. Do they get RCR guys, or who do they hire? It's also going to depend a lot on engineering and some of the other stuff that it will take to run this Cup car. Because you can get all the stuff from Hendrick, for crying out loud, but there is always that possibility that you're not going to run as good as the Hendrick cars are. I think you can look at case in point, with some of these teams that have run Hendrick Motorsports engines over the years. You look at Ganassi, Hendrick, power plants, and you look at Matt Kenseth and Kurt Busch. I mean, Kurt's got to win, but Matt struggled this year, and I think a lot of that has to do with the car. I don't think that necessarily has to do with the engine, but, sometimes the parts and the pieces are just a part of the equation and not the full equation as some people make it out to be. So we'll see how Suarez ends up, but by all indications, I think Briscoe's in the 14. We still got to find out what's going on with Eric Jones. Apparently, he has said he's going to solidify his 2021 plans this week. That doesn't mean we're going to get an announcement, but we'll find out where he's going to go. So it sounds like he's going to solidify his plans. Trevor Bayne's going to be in the trucks for the rest of this year. So we'll see if that means he's going to be back full time next year in trucks for Nice, which is pretty much what the indication has been that I've heard, is that he's going to try to work out a deal to stay in that 45 truck next season, which I think would be good. I mean, I don't think Trevor really ever planned on just going away and just making coffee in Knoxville, Tennessee. I don't think that was ever his ambition. I think he kind of got pushed out of the sport by the lack of funding coming out of Advocare, and their random decision to leave NASCAR based on a lot of things, I'm sure. But he was basically forced out of this sport, because of sponsorship. So we'll see Trevor come back into the truck series, I believe, next year, full time, which would be a good thing for the series. I think that getting a guy who's won a Daytona 500 and is, still, I think, widely regarded as someone that has talent, that can drive these cars for a living and win races. So we'll see. I think in the 45 truck full time next season. I think that's what Al Nice is working towards. Again, we don't know what happened with Ty Majeski. I don't know if sponsorship fell through or what the heck happened over there, but I think Ty is going to go back and running some late model stuff for a bit. I think he's kind of done with the NASCAR scene for a little bit. And we'll see what happens, but nothing else crazy to report. I think we're going to find some stuff out this week. As the week progresses, we'll find out some more deals. I know that Trackhouse has the third charter that Spire acquired. Basically of what, I mean, listen, we've heard all kinds of things with this Spire charter. We heard that it was the 37, then Tad and Jody, G come out and say basically it's not that charter because they own the charter. But then there were some rumors that Todd Braun owned it. Guys, we have no idea. We'll find out what charter they buy, what they bought, and what's getting leased out to Trackhouse. I have no idea. But it wouldn't surprise me if Todd Braun secretly has a charter somehow, and that is the charter that's actually going over to Spire. It wouldn't surprise me at this point in time. But I know the 37. I thought the 37 bought one of the charters from Furniture Row. I thought they bought the 77 charter like 2 years ago. That's why when they were saying Todd Braun was somehow involved in it, I said, how does that work out? Because Todd, as far as I knew, Todd had, I don't know if Todd had any piece of Harry's team or he bought the charter, because I'm like trying to think of where the heck the 15 charter went. From when Boyer was driving the 15, and then there was a 46, H. Scott. I was trying to think of where all the hell those charters ended up. And I agree with some of the fans out there. We need a chart, just so we could keep track of whose charters is whose, who leased it, who bought it. This is craziness. So NASCAR's got to do a better job with that. But what we're going to do is we're going to take another break. On the other side of this break, we were going to talk about what happened at Talladega and Charlotte. I'll try to compress it into into one segment, and then we will look ahead in a future segment, which will come after the race recap. We will talk about Kansas and what to look for at Kansas. So we'll catch you on the other side of the break. This is the Crew Cheese Corner podcast, hosted by Bobby Bailey. All right, so that is that. Way more than 20 minutes. That was like 23 minutes. So this is going to take 2 to 3 minutes to actually work. So give me a second. I'm just looking and seeing if I got any. Oh, no updates. It's only scary thing about, like, I just got one of these watch things, and I had one a couple years ago. And what's funny is sometimes this it's recording right now. So I got to make sure it doesn't try to record something in the middle of an episode, which it just tried to do. So I was also making sure I didn't get like some kind of crazy update from Twitter or something that, breaking news that I had to go in and try to edit the episode or something for. It's gonna be like 3 minutes before it processes. So while we have some time, let me talk about. We got some diecast in this last week. Now I'm going to show you a couple of them because this is what I like to do when we have nothing to talk about in between. So I got in this Joey Logano. This is the dual autograph elite. This is a dual autograph. So yeah, Joey Logano on the front windshield, and on the rear you have Paul Wolfe. Is Joey's new crew chief this season. This is his Las Vegas race winner. So the 2020 models are coming out fast and furious now. So this is the Las Vegas race win for Joey. I think this is his second or third win at Las Vegas of his career. But another big win for the Pennzoil guys with this 22 team. His first win of the 2020 season. And a nice win. This is actually, I think, DIN 16. Yep, it's DIN number 16. So not another door number, but a pretty sweet piece. They only made 36 of these bad boys. And you can only get it through Lionel Racing if you're a member of RCCA. So, and if you've never been an RCCA member, I highly recommend becoming one. I've been one for over 11 years. If you're into diecast, collecting diecast, they do have some really sweet cars that they offer from time to time. And sometimes you can get cool stuff like this. You can get a dual autograph car that you can't find anywhere else. You didn't have to go through the garage area. You didn't have to go through the trouble of tracking down the crew chief and the driver. They signed it for you. Yeah, it cost you a little bit extra. I think this car was $129.99. So I think with my discount, it was a little bit. It was like $127 or something like that. Because I'm a platinum member and I have been for several years. So I get like an 8% discount, which basically boils down to free shipping plus like $2 off. It more or less as I drop a lug nut, quite literally. Drop a lug nut. I got a ton of lug nuts last year when I went to Dover. I literally like picked up like 20 of them, and I use them as like basically ends for the diecast so they don't slide off the shelf if they ever try to. And this is the other car I got in. This is the first ever car I bought off of what's called Circle B Diecast, so cast.com. And it's the same folks that run Plan B sales. They just built a brand new website that is going to deal directly to the consumers, just like Plan B has. But it's going to be solely for that. There's not going to be any wholesale stuff going on there, like sometimes what goes on the Plan B side of things. So you'll see just the stuff that's in stock right now on CircleBDiecast.com. So they had a little diecast sale, so I picked up this bad boy. This is a Ryan Blaney car. This is the Advanced Auto Parts car. This is the liquid color. So this is kind of like the best way for me to describe to you the liquid color car is a car that basically looks like it's, has the sun beating on it constantly. That's the best way to describe the liquid color. And this red is absolutely gorgeous in liquid color. This is probably one of the better ones that Lionel has done. I really do enjoy this one. It definitely has a nice shine to it. Like I said, it's just a little pop of color in there that just makes it, look like it's beating on the sunshine. And with the lighting in this room, it really, really pops nicely, and it kind of looks kind of like a sunburnt orange almost. So it's a really, really nice color. And this is the Ryan Blaney autographed Advanced Auto Parts car. So check them out on CircleBDiecast.com. And you can check out all kinds of cool diecasts that they have. So Brent and the folks over at Plan B Sales have put together that site, and you can check it out and just, go over there and see what they got. All right, so let me see if this has finally uploaded, which it should have by now. Yes, it did. So I'll do 2020. Call that the 2021 silly season update. Silly season. Silly things happen during silly season. All right, we're going to go right into our race recap. And I'll start here in a couple seconds. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Crew Chiefs Corner podcast. This is Bobby Bailey. And now we're going to bring you the basically the last two races in the round of 12 race recaps. So we had Talladega. We had all three series at Talladega for the first time in the fall. Normally, Xfinity does not Talladega in the fall, but because of coronavirus and the limits on some of the tracks that we could go to, they decided to run Talladega as a makeup race for one of the events. I forget even which one it is. So that was the only real schedule change to the playoffs as far as the Xfinity series was concerned. There was no changes to the playoffs for the Cup cars, and I believe there was only one change to the trucks, which has already been taken care of. They weren't going to run Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, so that's why they ran the Daytona Road Course instead. So, and then it just moved some of the dates around, which is why I think the race at Talladega was actually called the Chevrolet Silverado 250, was because that was the entitlement sponsor that should have been for Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, but they just moved it to Talladega for that race to just cover that event up. And Chevrolet still had their sponsorship and all that. So money, taken. So anyhow, the truck race at Talladega was kind of nutty, as it always is. Another one of those events. I didn't watch the whole thing live, but Raphael Lessart gets the win. Good run by those guys over at KBM. A big first career win for him. But just another ho hum Talladega race, really. There's some moments there in the trucks where some guys did some stupid stuff, but it wasn't the ARCA brakes race that I really thought it was going to be. And if you don't know what ARCA brakes means, just go on Twitter and search ARCA brakes. You can find all kinds of fun tweets on that. So, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. The Xfinity race for Talladega was pretty crazy. I really wanted our guy over there, Ryan Sieg. If you're watching the podcast recording on YouTube and Twitch, you just saw I pointed to the hat. Really wanted our boy Ryan Sieg to get that win. He was in contention. He finished second, because they disqualified Michael Annette's car because of ride heights at the end of the race. But I really thought Ryan Sieg was going to win that race, coming to the checkered flag, but he didn't. And, Briscoe got the win. So those things happened. I mean, what are you going to do? Briscoe drove a great race, though, and considering he didn't have Cindric for part of that as a pusher. I mean, I'm sorry, Justin Haley won. I say Briscoe. Briscoe ran into the wall, but I mean, Justin Haley got the win. Big win for those guys. I do apologize. I know I just blundered and said Briscoe won, but big win for Justin Haley. 3 wins in a row. He puts himself in the same category or the same list as Dale Sr., Dale Jr. for winning 3 Xfinity plate races in a row. So a pretty special list to be on for Justin Haley. Anytime you can put your name on a list with the Earnhardts at a restrictor plate track, it's a pretty damn good thing that you did. So big win for Justin, moved him on to the next round. And like I said, really did help Ryan Sieg solidify his chances to make in the next round, because sure as hell we know he needed it after Saturday. So then we got to the Cup race. I mean, the Cup race, I know the finish, everybody was mad about it. I mean, listen, NASCAR is consistently inconsistent, okay? Now, I remember the double yellow line rule when it came out, okay? NASCAR came up with it. I mean, yeah, Dale's death had something to do with it, but it was something that NASCAR had been really looking at for years, is the amount of times guys would drive below the yellow line and cause accidents. And it was predominantly on the straightaways. You never really saw guys drive below the yellow line in corners because of the bottom. It wasn't the splitters. It was basically the bottom of the cars, were basically sealed to the ground. Even in the late 90s, early 2000s, they were sealing these things off to the ground pretty tightly. So, you would screw up the front, valances and screw up the radiator pans and a lot of the stuff underneath the car that made these cars aerodynamically slick and made these cars drive really fast. So by running onto the apron in the corners, you were screwing the car up so much that the guys just didn't chance it. Now, in light of Dale's accident at Daytona and some other accidents, guys flipping and stuff like that, they came up with the double yellow line rule, and basically you can't go below it. Now, originally it was you couldn't go below it at all, and they really kind of were inconsistent with it. In 2008, there was a race that Regan Smith and Tony Stewart were racing in. It was actually Tony Stewart's last win at Joe Gibbs Racing, believe it or not. He was driving the Subway car. And basically, NASCAR judged that Regan Smith went below the yellow line to make the pass on Tony Stewart to win the race on the last lap. But what NASCAR didn't do back then, and they do now, is they use their judgment. If a driver forces the other driver below the yellow line, then the driver that gets penalized is not the guy that went below the yellow line. It's the guy that forced you below the yellow line. So if you apply the 2020 rules to the 2008 race, technically Tony Stewart should have been disqualified and Regan Smith should have won that race. And if you ask most NASCAR fans, Regan Smith did win that race in 2008. So, and boy, I mean, that would have changed. I don't know if it would have changed Regan's career that much, in all honesty, because I think sponsorship was still going to be a problem for 2009, and I think he still would have moved on to furniture row racing and all that. But I think it definitely would have increased his stock quite a bit if he won that race that day for Regan. That would have been a big win for him. And then the Southern 500 would have just pushed him even further over the top, and I think that really would have catapulted his racing career even further. But hard to say. And then I think you look at other examples, such as Justin Haley in the Xfinity race at Daytona, a couple years ago. Another moment where I think Justin, really was trying to go for the win and just had nowhere else to go, and he kind of got forced into that spot. So again, another spot where NASCAR said, well, he kind of, did it on his own and this, that, and the other. He went below the yellow line, and NASCAR again used their judgment. And I think what happened Sunday was a lot of people were upset, but Denny Hamlin went below the yellow line because basically Matt DiBenedetto was basically blocking all sides of the road and pushed William Byron down there, and Hamlin had nowhere to go when he got to turn 3. There was just nowhere in the turn 4 there was nowhere for Hamlin to go because of the block that DiBenedetto threw on William Byron. And I get that Hamlin drove, 3/4 of the corner on the apron, but at the end of the day, and he did improve his position, but Matt was blocking and guys were avoiding running into William Byron and stuff. So I think no matter what NASCAR called that day, that wasn't a penalty on Denny Hamlin. It didn't matter at the end of the day because the fans wanted there to be a penalty for Denny Hamlin for just driving below the yellow line. But he was forced there, and that's why they penalized Matty D. And that's why, Denny ended up with the win. So NASCAR is consistently inconsistent. But the thing that really got me going after the race was seeing the drivers like Dale Jr., seeing media guys like Jim Utter, who we'll talk about in a little bit as well, and some of these other people that are saying NASCAR's got to get rid of the double yellow line. And I sit there and say, do we not remember the reason why the double yellow line exists? The reason why the double yellow line exists is partially because of Dale Sr.'s accident. Okay? If you look at what happened during that wreck, okay, part of that was Dale Sr. was blocking and forced Sterling Marlin a little bit below that yellow line and caused him to get into Dale. Because Sterling wasn't going to go below the double yellow line because of where they were on the track. Now, obviously, if that was a little bit further down the corner, getting closer to a tri-oval, and Sterling went below the yellow line, that wouldn't have mattered back then. But because of it was a corner, you don't want to destroy your car, and there's only so much room to race, and the guys were already going 3 wide as it was, that's what kind of helped contribute to the accident. And say what you want, but we had, Elliott Sadler flipped a few times, and we had some other wrecks. It wasn't just Dale Sr.'s fatal accident. It was Elliott Sadler had a couple bad wrecks at Talladega. There was other things that caused this double yellow line to happen. And, there was a moment in the 2003 EA Sports 500 where Dale Jr. is driving below Matt Kenseth on the back straight below the yellow line to win the race. And that was when the double yellow line rule existed, and they didn't call Junior on it. So I think, of what I've seen from the late 90s, early 2000s, and I watched a lot of those races as a kid, but I've gone over the years and rewatched a lot of them because this double yellow line rule has kind of always been a problem for a lot of people. I've watched a lot of those, gone back and watched a lot of those endings of races, and I think it would still cause a lot of accidents if you got rid of it. I really do, because then you would have guys blocking all the way to the grass, and you would end up having guys flipping and stuff in the grass. So I don't know what the exact answer is. I just think NASCAR's got to be more consistent with the rule calling and their judgments, and that I think that's a thing. But I do think that it's one of those deals that we're just going to have to put up with, and NASCAR's just got to do a better job of using their judgment, in my opinion, and just be consistent with the rules, and how you enforce them. That's all. I think that's the big problem NASCAR fans have with it right now. But I do think that that's got to stay. Now we'll get to Charlotte. But I do want to talk about Jim Utter for a second. I know a lot of people were upset about this last night, and listen, I agree with you all about being upset. I think that despite Bowman calling himself anxious Alex or whatever I think that was exactly what he said. He says welcome to anxious me or anxiety me. To go on Twitter and to make a hashtag and call it anxiety Alex. I mean, come on. I mean, what are we in, like, high school? We're in grade school again. I've said this before about Jim. I mean, he is a journalist. I just, he's been very, very, just, he's a great guy to go for news. But if you follow his stuff and what he says sometimes, and how he talks and how he interacts with people, I think most of us that have been around the sport long enough know that Utter says some stupid stuff, and probably should have been suspended and/or fired a long time ago for some of the stuff he said. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But I think at the end of the day, in this culture that we're in right now, and say what you want about it, you could call it cancel culture, you could call it, a societal awakening, whatever you guys want to call it. I do think Jim Utter is going to have to answer the bell here, and I'm not calling for the guy's head, but I think he should at least apologize for what he said, and he's refusing to even do that. So I don't know what it's going to take, but I think Jim, at some point in time, he's got to take a step back and look at the bigger picture of life and understand that sometimes saying things like that on social media, it does trigger people. It does get people upset. It does make people angry, especially people that have problems, dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression, dealing with those things. I think this is one of the reasons why people don't say things, don't say that I'm anxious, don't say that I'm depressed, because you have people like Jim Utter who just says something stupid on Twitter, like calling, Alex Bowman anxious Alex. Even though Alex kind of said, welcome to anxiety me, that doesn't give you the right as the person to say that. It was just like when we went back and we were looking at some of the other topics that we've had this year where guys have said things, whether it was the Larson situation, whether it's Mike Wallace, this day and age, you got to be so careful what you put out there in life and what you say, that sometimes, things slip. I get it. But at the end of the day, Jim Utter's got to own this, and he's got to say, listen, I'm sorry. I don't mean this, and he's got to learn that people do really get anxious. People do really have those problems. And I think that it's okay that guys have admitted this. We've seen Bowman's admit it, Bubba Wallace has admitted it. And again, whatever you guys feel about these people is your own opinion. I'm not trying to say that you guys need to do anything about this yourselves. But what I'm trying to say is that I think, in this day and age, especially media members, you got to be careful of what you're saying. You can't go out there and say things like this and not expect there to be some ramifications, because people are going to call you out on it. This is the new society that we're living in, the day and age. People are going to call you out on stuff that you said publicly, and you got to be careful. You really do. And sometimes, you could think things internally. You can think that, certain things about certain people, but you just can't publicly say those things. And you even got to be careful on saying things publicly on a private account too. I mean, we saw an instance of that with the NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. Was on his own personal Twitter, right? The guy goes out there and does an advertisement for Manscaped, and it's a personal care product and stuff. And he was doing an advert for him, and the NFL Network decided to take him off the air for about 2 weeks because he didn't run it by them to get it approved. So even then, you got to be careful, because you at the end of the day, you represent the company that you're working for, okay? And what you say is a representation of that company. So I think today a lot of people at motorsport.com are getting a lot of flack about it, and I feel bad because I know Nick DeGroot. Nick is I don't want to say a good friend of mine, but Nick and I know each other. I know Nick from back in my NASRAC days. And I've talked about this at great length in our 25th episode of the podcast. If you go back and listen to that, I talk about the NASRAC guys and how we're all connected. But Nick's one of those guys I know, and Nick is a great person. But today, motorsport.com is getting a ton of negative flack because of something Jim Utter said. And again, that's not a reflection of Nick DeGroot. It's not a reflection of their other great writers over there at motorsports.com. It's a reflection of Jim Utter. So that's what I got to say about that with Utter. I think, again, great news resource, but sometimes you got to turn off. You got to look the other way sometimes with what he says, because he says some stupid stuff. And that's never going to change with Utter unless somebody actually cans him from his job. So it is what it is. But getting to the Roval, all right? So the Xfinity race and the downpour, I know a lot of people were up in arms about it. I get why NASCAR ran it. I get why the Speedway wanted to run it. It was, one of those races. I mean, we had to get it in. I don't know when they were going to run it. The lighting situation was horrendous. I can't believe they didn't have enough lighting there, to run that race with total lighting. I can't believe it. I don't know what they're doing, but they got to do something better. They really got to make it better for the drivers, make it brighter. I know they did that for the Cup race, but it didn't really run into darkness issues. But they should have done that to begin with. They should have had the additional lighting. They should have done a better job. You could slap Speedway Motorsports on the wrist for that one. That's totally their fault. Thank God we didn't have a serious accident because of it. But you got to do a better job. You got to be better prepared for these possibilities. I mean, there's a hurricane coming through, or the remnants of a hurricane coming through. That it's going to be dark to begin with. You should have had more lighting there. That's the end of the day. That's the facts, Jack. And Bruton Smith's operation there, Speedway Motorsports, Marcus Smith, and everybody there at Charlotte should be ashamed of themselves. I mean, that was totally a unprofessional way to handle a situation that you knew what you were getting into. You knew that this was going to be a downpour. You knew that this was going to be a problem. And if this race ran long, you were going to need that temporary lighting to be on point. Not to, oh, wow, it's really dark. We should have done a better job. No, get the right amount of lighting there beforehand. I saw that whole thing, the whole documentary on them getting the lighting ready for the Winston All-Star race. Okay. And all the amount of time it took them to get that done. And you mean to tell me that this group that works so closely with Musco Lighting couldn't have figured out how to light the damn road course? I mean, come on. So totally, just unacceptable effort out of Charlotte Motor Speedway and Marcus Smith and those guys. I mean, I know they're all about the fan experience, but I mean, geez, get the damn lighting correct for the drivers. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And thankfully they supposedly had the right amount of lighting on for the Cup race, but still, it's a day late and $1 short. And that's what it is, and they're gonna have to live with that. For a bit, because I'm not thrilled with that. I think that's a bad job on their part. They should have known better, and the fans should demand a better treatment out of the facility too, because that's ludicrous. That's cutting corners. That's just you don't cut corners on safety. You really don't. And they really took a big risk in their hands. And thank God the drivers, didn't have more accidents than they did. Really, really, really good job by the guys driving that race. But a big win for Allmendinger. Another race that Briscoe kind of threw away there late. But a great battle between those two. But a big redeeming win for AJ Allmendinger. Picks up his second win of the season. Guys that basically were already in trouble as far as the playoffs go were the guys that got eliminated in the Xfinity series. There was no real shocking elimination. Everybody that was in trouble basically got eliminated. And Ryan Sieg moved on to the round of 8 for the first time ever. So great job by the RSS boys. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. We've still got Briscoe and Cindric in the thick of this deal. You still have Justin Allgaier in the thick of this. And Brandon Jones is lurking somewhere. And we got Kansas coming up. So we'll see how that all pans out for those guys. Then move on to the Cup race. Again, another win for Chase Elliott, a big win on the Roval. Despite the loose wheel coming to the green flag to start that final stage, Chase Elliott works his way back through and gets the W, a big win for Chase. It advances him automatically onto the next round. And then, you just had some chaos. I mean, it was funny in the beginning. My girlfriend and I were texting back and forth, and we were talking about how boring the race was. But once the slicks went on, once the track dried out, it became an exciting race again. So racing in the rain was a little treacherous. I think everybody was being respectful. Everybody was giving each other enough room. But boy, once you saw the track dry up enough, and Ty Dillon won that first stage basically by taking slicks before most of the field did. It was the right call. And after that, it was on from there. But a great run for Chase Elliott, a great day for them, and a heartbreaking day for Clint Bowyer. He was running so well early. He led most of that first stage, then got caught up in an accident later in the race that knocked the power steering out, and he was physically exhausted after the race. Unfortunately, had to go to the infield medical center, but Clint's okay, but physically drained after having to basically manhandle that car around that racetrack for the last, I'd say, 40-ish laps with no power steering. It was a tough race for Clint. But Clint did get eliminated in the playoffs, as did Kyle Busch. Kyle had all kinds of problems. He had a flat tire at one point. Then they stayed out on that late race restart when he should have came down pit road. He got passed, and then he had to take fuel with 2 laps to go, and eliminated him. So Kyle Busch is out. So is Bowyer. So is Austin Dillon, who had a great playoff run. Just had some troubles early in the round. Obviously had some issues at Talladega. And, we're on to the next round. So we're going to go to Kansas, and we will talk about Kansas here on the other side of the break here on the Crew Chiefs Corner podcast. This is Bobby Bailey. All right. So this last segment is going to be short. I'm probably going to do like 4 or 5 minutes here. So I need probably like 2. Probably going to need about 2 here to let this process. I wasn't planning on doing anything on Udder. I was going to actually not even talk about it, but I figured, we could. I just, my big thing with Udder and what he said, it's not necessarily what he said. It's the fact that, he is in the media. And one of the things that you do when you're in the media, and one of the things I learned when I was, even in high school is you don't, call people names. You don't do things like that. I mean, that's basic stuff. This is stuff we learn as young kids. And it just amazes me how much he, was trying to be a part of that culture that, got on Larson and all that stuff. And now here he is hypocritically calling Alex Bowman Anxiety Alex. So I don't know. Hopefully something happens. I doubt it, because Udder said other stupid stuff in the past and nothing's ever happened to him. So we'll see what happens. But, and the thing that makes it worse for me is he doesn't want to apologize about it. That's the thing that really bothers me, is that Udder doesn't want to say anything. He doesn't want to admit that he has, done something wrong. I was just looking to see if there was any kind of like Jim Utter thing yet. So here's a. All right, this is going to be a something we're going to have to talk about. So there's another Adam Stern bomb that just got dropped. Oh man, like right as I started this episode. Um, all right, guys, one last little bit here on the episode. We will do this right now. Nope, not that one. There we go. All right, guys, back here on the Crew Cheese Corner podcast. This is Bobby Bailey. We are coming to you with a little bit of late breaking news. I'm trying to get it. But apparently, this is not going to do what here we go. Nope, still can't read it. That's great. But anyhow, there was a article I just saw. I'm trying to get out of it on my Twitter. We are looking at possibly Matt Kaulig starting in a full-time Cup car starting in 2022. So that's some late-breaking Adam Stern news. That's a Stern bomb, as we've been calling him recently. So he's looking to possibly add a Cup car. I know he's been dabbling with it a little bit this year. He had the car for Justin Haley for the Daytona 500. All indications are that Justin Haley's going to drive in Cup starting next year for Spire Motorsports. That was the hot rumor that's been going around the last few weeks or so. But it sounds like Matt Kaulig is going to go Cup racing in a couple years with the next gen car, which is going to be pretty cool. So let's tie up the couple of loose ends here. Basically, I spent a little bit of the break looking at any fallout from Jim Utter saying anything because I'm looking at it. Apparently, Jim Utter's just blocking people left and right. I mean, that's no surprise either. He's blocked people all the time. So I'm not surprised with that. Zane Smith has just announced, literally just breaking news. GMS has announced that Zane Smith will return to the team in 2021 for the full Truck Series season. So Zane Smith back in the 21 truck next season for GMS Racing. But I still don't see anything on the Jim Utter side of things. So I guess we will get you up to speed on that. I have not seen Jim tweet anything today. So he has not tweeted anything. So take that for what it is. Anyhow, let's get to Kansas. We're going to have a big weekend. We have all 3 series. All the entry lists are posted on the Crew Chiefs Corner social media, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on Facebook. I'm going to get it on Instagram as soon as this podcast is over. So you'll be able to check it out on there. Stay tuned. We will cover all the latest on the Jim Utter story. That'll be on our social. We'll try to get that all out there. And if anything breaks, we will bring out the debrief at a retirement. We'll bring the debrief at a retirement, and we'll do a quick video on there as well. So be sure to stay tuned for that. For this weekend, I mean, guys, I think it's a mile and a half. I think Brandon Jones is going to be a real strong car to beat in Kansas for the Xfinity side of things. I think in the Truck Series, look out for Grant Enfinger, look out for Brett Moffitt. I think, Zane Smith's going to be a contender. Those are the 3 guys I would keep an eye on in the trucks. Xfinity, Ryan Sieg, I think, has got a real shot at this deal. These guys have been pretty good on the mile and a half. So if they bring that piece they ran at Las Vegas earlier in the season. They bring that car back. They'll have a really, really good one. And then we will also look at the Cup Series. I think the Cups. I'm sorry, and then Cindric and Briscoe are the other two people I'd watch out for in the Xfinity at Kansas, besides Brandon Jones. And then on the Cup side of things, I think your dark horse would be Kurt Busch. I think more likely people that are going to win, I would keep an eye on Joey Logano. I'd keep an eye on Harvick. They always seem to run well at the 1.5 miles this year, and Denny Hamlin would be my other third main pick that I would keep an eye on. So pretty status quo weekend, I think, if everything shakes out the way I think it's going to, with how 2020's gone. But I do think that you have an opportunity maybe for some strategy and maybe a surprise winner in the trucks or Xfinity. But I think Cup's going to pretty much be decided between the big powerhouses over on the Cup side of things. So for all the latest news, be sure to follow us on all the social. That's going to roll right. This segment ends. I appreciate all the support. Be sure to share the Coochie's Corner podcast with your friends. We're available on most major platforms. You can also check us out on Twitter. On Twitch, twitch.tv/Giants, like the football team, 02122. And also on YouTube, just search Coochie's Corner. You can catch the podcast recorded live, and then we upload it to our social media, to our podcasting platforms immediately after. And go check out all other 29 episodes that are on there, as well as the NASCAR for Rookies 3-part miniseries, which will get 3 more this offseason. So really looking forward to doing that. And the season's rapidly approaching its finale. We're 3 races away from finding out who the championship 4 is going to be. And we are getting ready for that. And we'll have our season finale out at Phoenix. And then we'll probably take a week off, and then we'll do our postseason stuff. And before you know it, we'll be ready for Daytona in 2021. Hard to believe. So that's it for another episode of the Coochie's Corner podcast. I'm Bobby Bailey. We will catch you guys probably later in the week, maybe early next week. We'll do another episode, try to get you caught up on Kansas. And until then, have a great week, and be safe, be well, and enjoy the races out of Kansas. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on Twitch and on YouTube. I really do appreciate all the support. We will catch you guys later in the week. Maybe we'll do a Facebook Live one day this week. Catch you guys later.